What's going on, guys? Welcome to something completely different. So instead of doing an anime review, we're just going to be discussing one of the recent movie releases that one of the more highly anticipated movie releases, that being Godzilla vs. Kong, which came out on both HBO Max as well as in theaters. Now, I have an HBO Max subscription that I pretty much got for a few different reasons, for Justice League and for this movie, as well as the upcoming Mortal Kombat movie. So fortunately, I was able to check this out on HBO Max, and but yeah, that all being said, with me as always, I have
initially I was a little bit concerned about like how this movie was going to go. It's just, first thing, the movie was directed by what was it, Adam Wingard. Yeah, Adam Wingard, who also directed the live action Netflix adaptation of Death Note series, which was honestly was just god awful. And
yeah, Adam Wingard has maybe directed, I've seen like 3 of his movies. I've seen You're Next, and that was like the only good movie I think he's done. Blair Witch 2016, which was a very mediocre sequel actually to the original Blair Witch, and the Death Note movie, which was awful. So he just doesn't have the greatest track record. So yeah, I was pretty concerned when I saw that he was involved with this. But at the same time, we also know that, I think Toho does have a lot of say in what happens with these movies. So I'm wondering if he wasn't on some kind of metaphorical leash or something where they told him what he can and can't do with it. So maybe that's why the movie was not, let's just say, not like the other stuff he's done.
Mm-hmm. Well, overall, after watching this movie, I do have to say this movie does live up to its name. That's the one good thing I can say about this movie. It's like it's not the greatest film. It's not like, Oscar worthy or anything like that. It's just
I don't think we're really expecting any of the kaiju movies to be Oscar worthy, to be honest.
Overall, like it's just like flat out fun. Just watching.
Yeah, that's what it should be, though. Like, it's like there's a kaiju, there's just the monsters fighting. The movie's just monsters fighting each other. That's the way it should be. The only kaiju movie like that I would say is more like just not as just dumb fun would be like the original Godzilla and also Shin Godzilla. But everything else is just like all the other kaiju movies are kind of like this.
Yeah, I mean there's not a lot of tension building in this movie, to be honest. There's just like, I guess a lot of like dialogue here and there, and then a lot of action scenes between Godzilla and Kong. And plus, it does introduce like some new elements into the new MonsterVerse, including introducing the new setting they call the Hollow Earth area, which is I suppose like the supposedly it's a subterranean area of Earth, like supposedly that's like the origin birthplace of the kaiju.
Yeah, the way I took it was that this was basically like the kaiju homeworld or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course it more or less somewhat explores like the origins of the rivalry between Godzilla and Kong's species. I mean, you can clearly see that, like,
they hint at it at least.
Yeah. But of course, like we don't like. I mean, maybe I would like to see like some kind of origin flashback to that sort of thing. But I guess, but overall, like I said, it's like the movie is good for what it was between the fight scenes with Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah, that was probably like the best part of the movie. Is the fight scenes are very well done.
Yeah.
It's probably the best I've seen from all the other MonsterVerse movies they've released so far, that being like Godzilla 2014, Kong Skull Island, and Godzilla King of the Monsters. I'd say Godzilla King of the Monsters is like second, in terms of where I would say how good the fights are, I would say.
But this one, like, it was just all fast paced, like all around between Godzilla and Kong fighting each other, like using every method, in their disposal, every arsenal in their disposal as possible that was used in the fight.
Yeah, so I would say there's like two major scenes with the Kong and Godzilla fighting each other, and the first, of course, is where Kong's on the ship and Godzilla is like fighting Kong on this, in the middle of the ocean, which is a pretty good scene, but it's a shorter scene. But the major scene was, is pretty much at the end of the movie with Godzilla and Kong fighting in the middle of Hong Kong.
Yeah,
that was like the best. That was actually like the best part of the movie.
And of course, like just the overall setting just is a lot brighter than the other two, Godzilla films that we saw. Like, which is
like the major criticism has been like a lot of the fight scenes have been taking place like in the dark, and it's hard to see. Like, I think that's especially true with like the Godzilla 2014. I think it got a little bit better with King of the Monsters, but that still was kind of an issue.
Yeah. However, like I mean, with Godzilla versus Kong, it still took place at night, but we could clearly see with the whole neon building, backdrop, like all over the place. I mean, you can clearly see what they're doing while they're fighting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can clearly make out what's going on at least.
But yeah, so I mean, we will be talking like a lot of spoilers in this movie, including like and what our thoughts are, with the human characters in this film. I
will say the only thing that's like kind of just really disappointing with the movie, first of all, is just that I feel like we've had this entire movie spoiled for us, because there's been so many teasers and trailers for this that have showed like a lot of major events in the movie. And one of the more major things that happens later has already kind of just been spoiled for everybody. And also just the fact that they decided to, I think, release the figures for this movie like pretty early. So we already kind of got spoiled as to what's, who or what kaiju's going to show up and all that. Yeah. So, yeah. It's like, that's the only thing that is really kind of negative, I could say. I kind of wish I could have gone in with, like not having like what felt like pretty much the whole movie spoiled for me, because I pretty much predicted what was going to happen for most of it. There were some things I didn't expect, but then there was a lot of stuff I pretty much called was going to happen. So that's the only disappointing thing about it. Like, I say this is a spoiler review, but I think a lot of people that have been keeping up with Godzilla vs. Kong, like, I hate to say it, but I think you guys have seen most of the movie. Like, there is a lot of stuff that you haven't seen, sure, but like I feel like for the more important plot points, you already know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, so here's okay. So the movie starts off like, I would say, they say it takes place a few years after the events of King of the Monsters, and supposedly like the world is at peace after Godzilla ended up defeating Ghidorah, and all the other known kaiju that we saw at the end of that movie supposedly went to seclusion. So we don't know like what happened afterwards, whether Godzilla ended up fighting and defeating them, or they just like went back to wherever they originated from. So that's sort of the one thing like, and I had issues with, like, what happened to all those like different kaiju that showed up, and then like they just all of a sudden like they just disappeared out of nowhere. But we also find out what happened to Kong. We find out, of course, like he's gotten a lot bigger since the events of his own solo movie, which is like Kong Skull Island. So he's pretty much grown to the point where he's as tall as Godzilla already, but he's stuck in this giant dome at Skull Island, where the entire island's ecosystem or weather is completely destabilized to the point where it's just constantly storming all around.
Yeah. And this is the scene that also introduces one of the other, I guess you'd say, major human characters in the movie, which is this little girl that can actually communicate with Kong through sign language.
Yeah, I think her name is Gia. Supposedly she's so. known. Yeah, she's known to be one of the descendants of the last natives who lived on that island. Of course, like you said, she prevents Kong, because she's deaf and then can communicate with sign language. But of course, Kong himself is like he's obviously, you can tell like he's a bit really angsty as just staying in that dome like the entire time, and he just like pretty much throws I guess spears of trees all around the dome to just try to break it down. And then it just gets to the point where Monarch, who's still in control of that area, is thinking about taking him out to an off-site location. But they worry about doing so because it's going to catch the attention of Godzilla, because there can't be like two alpha predators like roaming the earth.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think speaking of Godzilla, it's like around the next scene where we get reintroduced to Godzilla. And also this new character in the movie who is like this conspiracy theorist guy who runs like a podcast talking about the kaiju and like the weird experiments that this one new organization that's introduced in the movie called Apex is doing. And his whole podcast is about that, and like how he's, you know, he knows all these secrets and stuff. And he kind of seems to be more like, you know, the comic relief character in this movie. And I didn't mind his character. Like, I thought he was, you know, some of the stuff he did was funny. And then, like, I don't know. It's because my first impression was like, like when I saw him, I felt like he was like the Black Dennis Nedry or something from Jurassic Park, because it's kind of like he's that sort of character. He's just, you know, just says like random stuff, and you know, it's just the comic relief character.
Yeah, he sort of goes off the rails from time to time during his podcast sessions, but yeah, apparently he's an employee of Apex, and he tries to look into what's been provoking Godzilla, or supposedly he knows something that's in the Apex facility that he works at. But then before like he's about to find out, Godzilla just suddenly appears out of nowhere. Supposedly it's gotten the attention of Godzilla because of what's over at the Apex facility, and we find out of course Godzilla just causes a ton of damage over at the Apex facility, including the city of Florida. And we find out that there was like a piece of like a mechanical eyeball or something like that was in the facility that caught Godzilla's attention, and that's why it, you know, set Godzilla off.
Yeah, because I thought it was pretty weird that Godzilla was just coming up and, you know, destroying stuff and potentially killing people, because that's not really what Godzilla, well, for the most part, you know, Godzilla wouldn't do that. So, and I mean, like, that's pretty much the motivation of another character in this movie, which is Millie Bobby Brown's character from Godzilla King of the Monsters, is reintroduced in this. And at first I honestly didn't recognize her, because she is a few years, I think, in real time and also in the movie since that movie, so she is actually older. I don't know actually how old she is, but I think she's probably, like, if I could guess, maybe she's like 13 or something.
She's 17 right now.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, so like her main motivation basically is like she's one of the people that listens to this guy's podcast, and she wants to figure out like what's setting Godzilla off.
Yeah. And at first, like, she tries to get help from her dad, who, you know, of course, I guess he became the new director of Monarch, but of course he doesn't want her involved in anything related to the kaiju or anything like that. Even though, like, you know, she did help out, you know, with the fight between like Godzilla and Ghidorah, with her taking the, you know, that Orca device that she was, you know, that her mom developed. But of course, like I said, like, her father, like, you know, of course, is back from the previous film, but he doesn't really play much of a role in this film, unfortunately. Like, he's just like, he's just there. And surprisingly, like, you know, we know Monarch has been, like, you know, the most notable organization that's been like keeping tabs on all the kaiju throughout the entirety of the MonsterVerse, but they, for whatever reason, they're not really playing much of a role in this film compared to what Apex is doing.
Yeah, there's much more of a focus on Apex as opposed to Monarch.
Yeah,
but instead of the father, we focus more so on her mother and this other character. I forgot what you told me the actor's name was, but the mother and this other guy, as well as
you mean the daughter, or
well that too, yeah. But I mean, we focus more so on her mother as the you know, the deaf girl. Mostly because they're the ones who are like transporting Kong back to his, I guess, back to Skull Island. So it's much more focused on them. The father is just like barely even in the movie at all. So yeah. But yeah, like it's basically that there's this subplot with Millie Bobby Brown's character, and then this other guy. I don't even know what the character's name is. It's like, I guess her friend. Like he's basically just the nerdy type, character. And she basically like drags him along and tries to find the guy that runs this podcast. And
I think his name is Bernie.
Yeah, Bernie. So they're basically like trying to find him. Like, so like they pretty easily find the guy. They find where he lives, and then like, they pretty much the main thing with them is they're trying to figure out what's going on with Apex and what secrets they're hiding. And so they go to one of the Apex facilities. I think it was the Apex facility that was destroyed by Godzilla earlier on in the movie. To try to figure out like what it is exactly they're hiding.
Yeah, but of course they go back to the same area which Bernie found like that giant mechanical eyeball, but he noticed that it's gone. So, but they eventually like find like this subterranean what was it, this sub-level basement that they go deep underground into the facility, in which they find out like that Apex is transporting like these skull crawler eggs that was featured in the Kong Skull Island. Of course, they go in too deep, and they immediately get transported to like another facility down in Hong Kong. But yeah, so, but but on the other side of the story, like we go back to Apex. Like I think the CEO of Apex, I think Walter, hires this like this novelist who's like the scientist who studies like a hollow Earth or something like that. And supposedly he wants his help to find like a new power source within Hollow Earth. And of course, what was it? The scientist, his name is Nathan Lind. He needs help in trying to navigate into Hollow Earth because of Hollow Earth's like unstable gravity of sorts. And Apex supposedly has like an aircraft capable of navigating through that artificial gravity underneath Hollow Earth.
Yeah, and I think like part of Monarch's plan was also to like wasn't it to like lure Kong into Hollow Earth or something to get him to go there?
Because they need another kaiju in order to navigate through Hollow Earth in order to find this power source. So the only other monster they know that's capable of locating it is of course Kong. So Nathan goes back to Skull Island to where I think what was it? I think this
female
scientist named Eileen Andrews, who's also like, I would assume she's like the adoptive mother to Gia of that location. So like after some I would say like a brief conversation, like Dr. Andrews like reluctantly agrees to take Kong out of the facility to take him over to I guess where the entrance of the Hollow Earth is. So they pretty much take Kong into like this giant carrier that's able to sail him off like across the ocean, and they do their best to try to avoid Godzilla's natural patrol area, but unfortunately like Godzilla ends up finding him anyway.
It's like one of the best parts in the movie where Godzilla finds them and they just start fighting. It's definitely, like I said, one of the highlights of the whole movie. I thought the fight scenes in this were definitely the best part of it.
The fight scene over the ocean was pretty interesting, but of course it was just brief, and the fight ends just basically with shortly after Godzilla tried to drown Kong underneath the ocean, and then of course the battleships ended up launching depth charges to at least try to free Kong from Godzilla's grip. So Godzilla, no, actually, Kong does make it back to the carrier, but Godzilla stops his attack when like all the other ships turn off their engines, and Kong is just basically just incapacitated at that point.
Yeah.
And well, yeah. So after that fight, like pretty much like instead of carrying him through sea, they decided to just like air carry him all the way to, I think they take him to Antarctica or something like that.
I think so.
Yeah.
And at first they couldn't get him to go because they have this like underground area. At first they couldn't like get Kong to go in there, but they pretty much had to get the deaf girl to use sign language and convince him to go in by telling him that there are more of his kind in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then of course they do end up traveling to the entrance of the tunnel to where Hollow Earth is, and they eventually make it to I guess they make it into the Hollow Earth, which is kind of interesting. Like its gravity works like in two different ways. There's there's a surface on the bottom and up on the ceiling too.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's inverted or something.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and of course, like Kong, like along the way, Kong tries to travel to where the energy source is, but of course they get attacked by these two like winged dragon-like serpents in the area. But of course, Kong manages to fend them off. So Kong eventually gets to like this this energy source, and he finds out that it used to I guess be the home lair of his species.
Yeah, like you said earlier, I kind of would have liked to have seen maybe some flashbacks or something that would have shown the battle between his species and Godzilla or something. That would have been interesting. But it's more just we just hear about it from the human characters. Yeah,
and of course, once Godzilla enters the throne, like he picks up an axe. Yeah, King Kong. Like he picks up an axe, which I suppose it looks like the axe is made out of like one of Godzilla's dorsal fins.
Yeah, there's also like that weird symbol around the throne that looks like Godzilla.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course Kong ends up using the axe to insert it into the floor, which ends up becoming the energy source, and of course the Apex scientists somehow ended up extracting it and transferring it over to the Apex facility in Hong Kong, which is which I find like a bit unbelievable, to be honest, like about how they could just somehow like recreate the energy without having to transport that stuff out of there. And
they're all the way underground too. It's like I don't know how that reaches them.
Yeah, but of course we also find out why Apex needed that power source in the first place is because they were secretly developing Mechagodzilla underneath their facility.
Yeah, because I think at this point in the movie, Millie Bobby Brown and the other Bernie and the other kid, they're infiltrated this Apex facility, and they find first before anything that I think it's really them that first discover Mechagodzilla, I already kind of figured that they were going to be revealing Mechagodzilla before I even saw it, because I was like, yeah, that looks like Mechagodzilla. But this Mechagodzilla works like... I don't remember too much about the original Mechagodzilla, but I think that might have also had a pilot, but this one also, is being piloted by somebody. I think I asked before the review, what do you think about the redesign, like the new design for Mechagodzilla? Compared to
it looks interesting. It looks interesting, because they had to give Mechagodzilla a more sleeker look than what he looked like. Because, in his original design, he looked, a bit fat in his design, and to be honest, obviously, it was just another guy in this, wearing a suit at the time. But they had to make something that would have to make it look convincing, something that you would see out of Pacific Rim or something like that.
Yeah. I actually didn't mind it. I thought it looked... I actually, for the most part, thought it looked fine. Yeah, I just that's one of the more interesting parts of this movie is the introduction of Mechagodzilla, which of course, like I said, that's one of the main things that I think people have already been spoiled about, is they kind of already knew that Mechagodzilla was going to show up in this.
Yeah, and we also find out that the way that they're controlling Mechagodzilla is through one of Ghidorah's remaining decapitated heads from King of the Monsters, and linking it with another human mind, which turns out to be like the son of Serizawa from the previous films. And honestly, I was disappointed in that reveal, because I would think that this Serizawa would play a much bigger role when it comes to the other kaiju and following his father's footsteps. But it seems like he just followed, he just became like, working for the villain, and then like he just gets thrown to this, I don't know, he just gets thrown to the side. Like,
I mean, he just gets mentioned in passing at one point, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess someone related to Serizawa's on this, and that's kind of like, this is like, he's not a really major character, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was kind of my issue, like, with this film, of how they treated a lot of their human characters. It's just, Madison in this film, like, I think her role she still played a good, big role, but it just seems like a bit of a downgrade compared to her role from King of the Monsters. And then, like, introducing Bernie, and then Madison's nerdy friend, just like out of nowhere, just, I don't know, they didn't really come across as, like, I don't know, the more notable characters. I mean, just like, of course, the more notable characters is, of course, Gia, and of course the two scientists that are accompanying her. Yeah, like, the other characters that are following Kong around have much more to do in the movie, as opposed to the group of characters that are with Millie Bobby Brown. They just don't have as much really to do. Like, it's really just more so that we can be introduced to like Mechagodzilla and what they were doing with Ghidorah's skull. And somebody also made this criticism about the movie too, which I don't really mind about it, but that this is more like a King Kong movie with Godzilla just kind of being there, as opposed to, because they show Kong much more than they do Godzilla, which I don't really mind. But that is true. Kong has much more scenes than in comparison to Godzilla. Yeah, and it seems like Kong has has more development, more character development in this movie, because like he over time, like, he's able to communicate sign language through Gia. Yeah, because he can kind of communicate with the girl, where he can tell her that he wants to go home. But I think that's like really all he does in terms of like communicating with her. Like, he can understand her, but he doesn't really use much sign language aside from that. Yeah, but of course, like, he eventually gets to learn the origins of where he and his kind ended up coming from, and of course, he ends up taking his place in the throne in Hollow Earth at the end. But of course, like, soon afterwards, back to the whole Mechagodzilla thing. It's once like they were once again testing Mechagodzilla, it also set Godzilla off to back to where they are at Hong Kong. So Godzilla ends up like arriving in Hong Kong, pretty much decimating the place already. But Godzilla also ends up aiming at the ground, which is also kind of reminiscent to something you would see from Shin Godzilla, where Godzilla ends up using his atomic breath to just blast to the ground underneath. Somewhere, like, he just like completely uses like his atomic breath like all the way down to where the Hollow Earth is, to where Kong already is at, which I kind of find it kind of convenient to that Kong is just like literally underneath where. When I was watching it, I was like, oh, so they just happened to be like right there. I think we should mention like another one of the human characters too. That one woman who's working for Apex, like, she, of course, like, I didn't like her character as soon as they introduced her, because she was just kind of not very nice to anybody. And then of course it was revealed that she's of course a villain, because she's trying to like steal
the energy or whatever, like an energy sample from the Hollow Earth, and she tries to take it. But of course, she tries to get away and just gets blown up because Kong just blows up the ship she's in.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was kind of pointless. I mean, it was more or less her fault because she ordered the ship to fire on Kong, and that's what set Kong off. She just pretty much.
Yeah, I was just like thinking, why would you even do that? But she was just kind of a dumb character. Anyway, Godzilla does eventually, drop through the hole where Godzilla ended up creating through his atomic breath, and of course, this gets us like one of the biggest main events of the movie, which is of course the fight between Godzilla and Kong, which definitely is the biggest highlight of this movie, which they just literally just go at it like throughout the entirety of that fight. Yeah, I kind of like how it's not like Godzilla didn't really Godzilla didn't really overpower Kong too much, and then Kong didn't really overpower Godzilla, because people were like wondering like which one would be more powerful. So I kind of like how they made it look sort of equal in a way, because during this fight scene, it's like I think in the beginning, like wasn't it like Kong who eventually downs Godzilla, and then Godzilla comes back and just really messes him up. I think he just starts like scratching and stuff.
Well, yeah, it's like Kong did his best against Godzilla, even when he tried to use that axe that he got from underneath. He even used the axe to absorb Godzilla's atomic breath, but of course, Godzilla ends up like overcoming him. Like, I guess he ended up dislocating Kong's left shoulder at one point, and then he just pretty much takes him down afterwards. And then that pretty much comes out with the best scene, in which like Godzilla and Kong just basically just roar at each other like nonstop.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, and overall, in my it definitely looks like Godzilla was the real winner here. To be honest,
Godzilla. I think Godzilla is definitely just more powerful than Kong. Like he would pretty much win most of the time.
Yeah, but of course that wasn't the end of the fight. Between the two of them, of course, we find out that Apex once again tries to reactivate Mechagodzilla by using the new power source. Unfortunately for them, they instead of properly testing out the new power source, they just immediately activate Mechagodzilla, which causes like the new power source to cause it to malfunction, and I guess link Ghidorah's consciousness into Mechagodzilla afterwards.
Yeah, because it pretty much like kills the pilot, and then it goes back to Ghidorah being, I guess, the power source. And it's also at this point in the movie where they Apex catches Millie Bobby Brown and the rest of the character, and Bernie and the other character. It basically, I thought it was kind of funny because the villain, basically, he starts giving the typical villain monologue, and I kind of like how it was sort of self-aware, because it's like I think they mentioned like him giving like that one just villain monologue at that point in the movie, and just kind of make fun of it. Because while he's doing it, like Mechagodzilla's behind him, and it starts like walking towards him, and everybody else is backing up, and then he just turns around and Mechagodzilla just like kills him.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't think. I thought the whole villain plot point was just weak, and to be honest,
he was just a villain character. Like, he just was there to be like essentially just the bad guy.
I guess. Well, the reason why he did all this is just to make. He wants to make humanity like the apex species again.
Yeah, he doesn't want Godzilla to be like the most powerful predator, essentially. Like, he wants humanity to be on equal footing.
But unfortunately for him, like, he pretty much like he gets destroyed by the thing that he created, which of course is Mechagodzilla. Unfortunately, like we said, like Ghidorah's consciousness ends up getting transferred into Mechagodzilla. So Mechagodzilla pretty much has a mind of its own at this point by basically just breaking out of the facility and then just destroying parts of the city on its own.
Yeah. Yeah, of course Godzilla sees Mechagodzilla and they start to fight. And unfortunately, like, Godzilla gets his ass handed to it like immediately, just because like Mechagodzilla is like has a lot of weaponry in its arsenal, and also the fact that Godzilla just recently finished its fight against Kong, and so it's pretty much like not at full 100%, health wise, but eventually, like, Kong does end up getting resuscitated by what was it? I think it was Nathan. He used like the aircraft as like some kind of makeshift defibrillator. Yeah.
So he ends up blowing it up, and then which causes Kong to immediately wake up afterwards. And Gia just comes up to try to convince Kong that Godzilla is not the enemy, but instead it's Mechagodzilla.
Yeah. Yeah, and this leads to like probably one of the one of the best scenes in the movie, which is like I expected this to happen anyway. Like Kong and Godzilla team up to basically just to take down Mechagodzilla, and it's a great scene. Like Kong actually ends up being the one to like really deal like the finishing blows to it with his axe, because it ends up like that. I think Mechagodzilla like ends up like powering up his axe or something, and he just like hacks it apart. Yeah,
and he pretty much like decapitates it afterwards, and then that was pretty much the end of it. Like. All the human characters end up celebrating, and then I mean, honestly, I don't think there's anything to celebrate for the humans, to be honest, because like
if you think about it, like a lot of the Hong Kong was just destroyed, and everybody, like, so many people died. So it's like yeah
but in the end, like Kong and Godzilla are pretty much the only true victors standing, and it looked like you would think that they were going to end up fighting again, but it seems like Godzilla and Kong have agreed to like a temporary truce afterwards.
I will mention that with Mechagodzilla, I do like what they did with it with him in this movie, as opposed to like his like how he was in the original, like I think it was like the 70s version of him or whatever, where he was just created by aliens or something. I kind of like how they at least changed up his origins to where it makes more sense. Makes more sense here. It's not as ridiculous.
Yeah, but of course the movie ends where we get back to Hollow Earth, and Kong is just basically like permanently living there at this point. So yeah, that's pretty much the end of Godzilla versus Kong. So.
No after credits.
Overall, no after credits, and unfortunately, we find out that Godzilla vs. Kong is the last known Toho film under contract with Warner Brothers. So we don't know if they're going to end up like. Well, it depends on like how popular this movie is. Maybe they might renew their contract and follow up another film or something like that. But yeah, that's pretty much like the end of it, as far as we know.
Yeah, I hope so. I did hear rumors that like they want to like do their own version of the MonsterVerse in Japan, so maybe that's what they want to do next. Or they might just make another MonsterVerse movie over here. It's hard to say what's going to happen.
I mean, like, there's still rumors that Hideki Anno's still planning on making
there's the Shin Ultraman. Yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah, like I said, this was a great movie. Like, even with the flaws, which I kind of, even going into it, I assumed that the worst part about it would probably be the human characters, and I would say that's true to an extent. I would say, like, it's kind of true for the most part, like, because there are human characters that at least have like a purpose in this, and they're given like something to do. So not all of them are bad, but like it's funny how, like, with Millie Bobby Brown's character in King of the Monsters, like, she kind of had something to do, and then this one it's more like it feels like her character is kind of unnecessary, and then like the other characters actually have more impact on the plot.
Yeah, it just seemed like there wasn't really any need for them to even for what was it? For Madison and the other two characters to really even be there. To be honest, I mean, they all they find out is just Apex is making Mechagodzilla, and then that's it. I mean, there was that one point where they ended up sabotaging Mechagodzilla's controls.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's really the only thing they do. Is like they sabotage Mechagodzilla to an extent.
Yeah, but that was it. But honestly, I don't think they. Kong would have needed their help anyway, because
I do like how it's not like, because I remember like the kid, like he was trying to hack the password or what, like trying to figure out the password, and I was like kind of hoping it wouldn't be one of those cliches where he just like figures it out. And like fortunately they just decide like, oh, just destroy the console or whatever controlling Mechagodzilla, which made sense. Like I was like, okay, that at least it's not as dumb as he just hacked the pass or some stupid stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, they just stopped it by destroying, like I guess pouring a flask of liquor like onto the controls.
That was a weird thing too. That guy kept like some whiskey on him the whole time, like all the time, and it was like ever since his wife died, he just kept his whiskey on him, and I'm just imagining, I'm like, that's kind of nasty, it's like you're just gonna keep that whiskey there for years and then drink it. It's kind of gross, but
but honestly, I just did not like, I don't know, their background or their character motivations, to be honest. I mean,
Bernie character was okay. Like he did what he was supposed to do. Like he was the comic relief, and then like I would say like it's kind of hit or miss. Like some of his jokes are funny, and then other things I'm kind of like more annoyed by, I guess. It's like
the whole Bleach reference.
Oh yeah, the Tide Pod reference. Yeah, I can't believe they actually referenced that.
I don't even think that was even really necessary, to be honest. It felt like. I almost felt like I was watching like the Michael Bay Transformers, to be honest. But
yeah, I kind of did feel that way to an extent.
It almost felt like that. But it mostly. I mean, like the Transformers movies also suffered because of their human characters, but they also suffered because of the characterizations with the Transformer characters as well.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't really do the same thing with the kaijus in this film, because all they do is just like. Their main instinct is just fight each other, and that's it.
Yeah. But yeah, I would say overall, like, I guess if I were to give this movie a rating, I'd probably give it like an 8. Even like I said, even though there were annoying parts about it, like, or parts that I thought were unnecessary, like I'd still give it an 8, just because the thing that the movie sets out to do, which is just have this be like a fight between Kong and Godzilla, I think it really excels at. So like. It definitely exceeds what it set out to do in the first place. So that's really what's important.
Yeah, and it definitely exceeds like how long ago was that Godzilla versus Kong movie from
that was like the 70s. You mean the original one?
Yeah, that one. It was that was like so long ago. I can't remember.
It was either the 60s or the 70s, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I seem to remember they said
the 60s, like, I could promise.
Yeah, I mean, overall, that the fight between them back then, it was pretty silly at the time, because like it was just two people in costume. Just
some of the movies, those movies just haven't really aged very well, unfortunately. So, but yeah, it's definitely a step up from something like that.
Yeah. But yeah, I did like this movie. I thought overall, I think I don't know if I would really consider the best of all the modern day Godzilla films that we've seen so far. I mean, but I would say like
in
the
terms
fight
of like
scene
the MonsterVerse, like the American, like the MonsterVerse they were trying to do over here, like in terms of those movies, like Godzilla 2014, King of the Monsters, Skull Island, I think is probably the best one I've seen. In terms of like modern Godzilla movies, I would have to say Shin Godzilla. If we're just talking about modern Godzilla movies in general. Yeah,
definitely. But yeah, I would like to see them make a sequel to Shin Godzilla, because it kind of left off like in a cliffhanger.
Like, that movie was genuinely kind of scary with some of the implications of like, especially with the ending.
Yeah, but yes. But as for the MonsterVerse itself, like it's unknown whether or not they even plan to continue on with this. With that series, considering that, like I said, Toho's like contract with Warner Brothers has currently expired. after this movie, but it's possible that, if Toho's willing to renew their, the agreement and maybe make another Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
I mean, there are rumors that there may be like a Godzilla versus Pacific Rim movie coming along.
Yeah, I mean, I know Toho wants the character of Godzilla to be more popular over here, like that they wanted Godzilla to be closer to what it I guess he's like in the Japanese versions of the Japanese Godzilla movies, because until this. I think it was before, until like we got, I think, Godzilla 2014. I could be wrong. I think it was just like the 1998 Godzilla that we had over here, which was not good.
That ridiculous. And
the Japanese really hated. They really don't like that version of Godzilla. So it's like I think the Toho's main thing was they wanted to, I guess, have a more accurate version of Godzilla to how he originally is. Which I think they definitely succeeded with these movies. It definitely reminds me a lot of the original Godzilla movies.
Yeah, it's definitely helped redeem the character of over on an international level. So it's like I still think like the MonsterVerse, could potentially continue if Toho's willing to. To renew the agreement with Warner Brothers. Yeah,
let's hope so. I mean, unfortunately, it seems like the future is uncertain at the moment. So, but let's hope they do renew their contract, because I after this, I definitely want to see more. So I hope it's not the last one.
Yeah.
But I guess that remains to be seen. But yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about this movie. I thought it was great, and then probably the next best movie I've seen this year so far, next to the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely worth watching it on HBO Max for the price of $14.99 for about a month, I guess. I mean, this movie is only going to be around on HBO Max for about a month before they pull it out.
Yeah, so. Yeah, that's true. And speaking of another thing, people have said that one of the things people have said about this movie is it really deserves to be seen on the big screen. I would have to agree. If I had the choice, if I didn't already have HBO Max or whatever, I'd probably want to see it in theaters. If I already was planning to see it in theaters, but considering I already have HBO Max, I'm like, I might as well just watch it at home. But yeah, I definitely can't see that argument. I guess it definitely is better to have seen it on the big screen, but considering I have a 4K TV and I was able to stream this movie in 4K, it does look really damn good, even though it, on just my 43-inch television. But it would definitely, would look really damn good on a, one of those huge screens.
Yeah.
It is playing in theaters, so there is that option, at least in certain theaters. So, there's that option. But HBO Max would definitely probably be the easier, or, the more easy choice, as opposed to going out to a movie theater to see it.
Yeah, I mean, compared to paying $25 for a movie theater ticket, it's compared to watching it at home for $14.99 for a month. I mean that's sort of the best option at this point, unless if you're willing to just go to the theater to watch it. That's fine. But yeah, I think I think HBO Max was a pretty good option at the time.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so that all being said, I don't know if you have anything else to say about the movie.
No, I thought, overall this movie was fun. It definitely lives up to its name. Despite the fact, just the weak, elements like all the other MonsterVerse movies were just the human characters. I honestly, in my opinion, the human aspect in this film is I'd say a bit worse than what the other two Godzilla films were. In my opinion,
I don't know if I say they were worse. Because on some level it's somewhat of an improvement to some extent with certain characters, but then with others it's kind of more like what we're used to with these movies. So I feel like it's more like a mixed bag. I could see they were trying to give the characters more to do, but they still kind of suffer from being really stupid at times and just pointless.
I felt like they could have just removed a set of characters and mostly focused on on Gia and the two scientists that look after her. Yeah,
because that's what the movie focused on the most, and then the other characters, it just felt more like they were there to more so just introduce certain things to the audience, such as Mechagodzilla, that's really and really you don't even need them for that, I would say. So it's really just kind of like, why are they even there? But yeah, so yeah, that all being said, hope you guys enjoyed this. It's a little bit different from, you know, the kind of review I would usually do. I just felt like maybe we should just talk about the spoilers and just give our general thoughts on the movie. So yeah, let me know what you think about this movie and our thoughts on the movie. And yeah, so that all being said, until next time, we will see you all later.